he's a true comic artist in that he writes in pictures, as it were. His shorthand is pictures. And I mean, I understand when he was working on a story that he would probably draw a page as quickly as most people would write it, you know, without inhibition, flying straight from his intuition and the very base levels of his mind straight onto the paper, which is a trick that not many people can do. And I was lucky enough to be asked to ink a Kirby, I think, not on the original pencils, but on an overlay. And Kirby's pictures look very simple. They look, you know, they're just simple, they're just obvious. They're like, you know, a natural phenomenon. But if you come to ink them, they're very hard to ink because you can't fudge them. You can't sort of draw an approximate line and then add a bit of rendering and then thicken it up a bit. You've got to get that line. You've got to hit the beat. And if you don't hit it, the drawing just falls to pieces. I doubt that comics will ever see his like again because, I mean, he was there at the ground floor and he influenced a generation and, you know, I mean, he is the king. I mean, there is no doubt about it.
In 1941, a scrawny draft board reject named Steve Rogers was injected with a secret serum and transformed into Captain America, the patriotic superhero. When the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor on December 7th that year, Cap leapt into the fray fist first. When Hitler finally fell and Japan surrendered, Captain America fought in the Cold War until 1949, when the ultimate weapon was mothballed. And then, in 1964, in Avengers #4, he reappeared. This new Captain America personified a subtler kind of patriotism. When you originally created Captain America, what were you going for? What were you hoping to do with that character?
Well, I was a very patriotic sort, and as with Joe Simon, my partner, and together we created Captain America because that was the climate of the times. I mean, Hitler was seizing everything in sight in Europe, and they were very, very troubled times, and you could feel it here in America. So we had a natural villain and natural heroes. Our heroes were American, and we had that American feeling. And from these feelings came the heroes that we thought would solve our problems.
Right. In much more peaceful times, in the early 60s, you created hundreds of heroes to populate the Marvel Universe. My personal favorites are the Fantastic Four. What did that super team represent for you?
The Fantastic Four were, well, they were the teens. They were the young people.
Right.
I love young people. I love teenagers. And you'll find that the Fantastic Four represent that group in many, many ways. They're very vital, and they're very active, and the teens certainly are in that category. So the Fantastic Four was my admiration for young people.
Right. Well, you covered all the bases. You had Reed Richards, a.k.a. Mr. Fantastic. He was the straight-class president type. Sue Storm, Invisible Girl, was the liberated lady. Her brother Johnny Storm was the preppy quarterback type. And Ben Grimm, the Thing, had that teenage complexion. He was kind of the gruff rebel, or what was he exactly?
Well, the Thing was really myself. If you'll notice the way the Thing talks and acts, you'll find that the Thing is really Jack Kirby. He has my manners. He has my manner of speech. And he thinks the way I do. He's excitable, and you'll find that he's very, very active among people, and he can muscle his way through a crowd. And I find that I'm that sort of person.
Backtracking for a moment, in the early 40s, Kirby worked for two other comic greats, Jerry Iger and Will Eisner, at the Iger-Eisner Studios. A while back, I asked Will if he remembered any amusing stories from those early days in New York. He did.
he thought of himself as a kind of a heroic person. And I remember we were in an office building, and there was a towel service we got every day. They brought in a towel service. We had 10 or 15 artists working, so it was important. We were a fairly good customer. We got something like 10 towels or 12 towels, 15 towels, and we were a fairly good customer. The towel service, unbeknownst to me, however, was handled by the mafia. It was a controlled service. There were no competitors. Anyway, Iger got angry for some reason. He felt that we weren't getting enough soap or something like that, and he said, let's go to another towel service. And so he called up another towel service, and we got a visit that afternoon from a guy with the classic stereotype, dark shirt and a white tie, a pork pie hat, kind of creased face, looked like a truck had run over the face. And he came in and said, now, you really don't want to make any trouble. I mean, really, we have this building. Anyway, he was standing there, and it looked pretty, and Jack was sitting in the room, in the back room. Back room, you could see the front office. Front office was a little ante-room in the back room. And he came out and he says, hey, is this guy giving you any trouble? Jack, you got to remember, was something like 5 feet 1 inch, and this guy was 6 feet 4 inches tall, towered over me, and I towered over Jack. And Jack was going to lay him out. And I grabbed Jack by the back and said, hey, cool it, Jack. We don't want to get any trouble. This guy got, the hood got a little nervous. I mean, Jack was so fierce that he backed off. Didn't solve anything. We still use their towel service, but that was what I always remember about Jack.
What prompted you to reinvent Thor for the comics in '62?
Well, I knew the Thor legends very well, but I wanted to modernize them. I felt that might be a new thing for comics, taking the old legend and modernizing them. And I believe I accomplished that.
What is it about ancient heroes like Thor that make them so enduring and relevant today?
Well, the heroes represent the wholesome part of society. Society has a wholesome side and it has a downside. We know where those facets lie. They're common to all of us. And if we want to be our wholesome selves, then we'll stick with legends like Thor and Odin.
In addition to those two, you've created a host of other characters who are either gods or are godlike. I'm thinking of the New Gods, Galactus the World Eater, and Silver Surfer, Galactus's alien messenger. Why are you so fascinated by gods?
We all have a kind of feeling, I think, that we've had for thousands of years, that there are higher beings somewhere. And I think all our spiritual feelings stem from that. The truth is that the Greeks had Hercules, right, even as the Norsemen had Thor. And through the ages, we've had heroes similar to them. And in ages past, we had Samson, who is no more than a superhero. And today we have our superhero. We believe in them because we believe in ourselves.
Kirby represents, for me, a watershed artist in comics. Particularly his work in the 60s at Marvel is work that, to me, restructured the visual superhero. He created a visual language for superheroes, and together he and Stan, I think, created a conceptual world for superheroes that really, everything after that, either takes from it and or comes after it and is deliberately is been influenced by it, or deliberately ignores it and does something else. But it's not, well, ignore isn't the right word. You can't ignore it. I think partly that may be because Jack's visual language for that material was so powerful, it blew everything else off the map. It's hard to read just a private detective comic with a guy belting bank robbers when, you know, people are moving suns around and you're reaching for the phone and you stretch out of camera shot, you know, like this, in order just to pick the phone up. It did make such a huge difference visually. For me, I think what I have tried to take from Jack, I mean, I look at a lot of Kirby stuff, is the energy. I think nobody really encapsulated the explosive energy within the human figure and within the world of the panel inside the drawing as Jack did.